everyone, it is Sunny here. I am coming to you live on behalf of Neighbourhood Arts Network. I'm the creator and director of Voice of Purpose, and today I am here to share with you some common questions and common challenges that community artists and community artist educators face in the line of doing our work. And just big shout outs to Neighbourhood Arts Network and the work that we've been doing with making a living, making art. And a lot of the questions that I have or the things that I'll be addressing today are going to be centered around some of the common themes that came up during our digital conversations or digital consultations that took place over this past week. And also just deepening into some of the themes that I covered in the critical narrative that was published earlier in the month as well. And so if you're joining us live, welcome. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to shoot them into the comments and I will get to them as we receive them. So just to start us off, I wanted to talk about some of the things that came up as common themes during the consultations that I did with a bunch of different community artists. We did a call out to community artists and artist educators specifically about some of the things that they wanted consultation around. And one of the things that I found myself speaking to a lot of them about was the idea of alignment. Alignment within yourself in terms of understanding your core mission and your core messaging, your core promise as in your branding. And understanding what your brand message is, and not from a sleazy marketing standpoint, but from a standpoint of understanding what is your purpose, what is the core gift that you have to offer to the world. And then in the second aspect of alignment is aligning yourself with the right people. Who are the people that are going to resonate most with your work? Where are your allies? So who are the allies that most believe in your work? Because a lot of the questions that I received were about where do I find work? How do I book gigs? How do I get my foot in the door for people who are just starting out? How do I maintain stable work in being a community artist and community artist educator? And it's really about finding the allies that believe in your work and finding the partners, whether they be organizations or individuals, that where there's a natural coming together of your message and their mandate of what you have to offer. So that requires for you to understand what is at the core gift, what makes you unique, what is the gift that you are here to offer, and then finding organizations with whom that aligns with. So one of the things that I really was talking about a lot with them was about approaching partnerships from a place of giving, approaching partnerships to understand what it is that their mandate is, and then what you bring to the table should help them to enrich what it is that they're already offering. I think oftentimes as artists and as community artists, we get into this place of kind of peddling, right? Like, buy my stuff, support my work, and you have to show up as a resource for people, and that's how you build value. And so I think that is one of the other messages that was really coming through strong in the consultations that I gave last week is the value of your work. And that means, yes, of course, presenting work that is of high caliber, but it also means that you value the work that you yourself create. So it's believing and understanding in your own value. And a lot of times we have trouble with this because we tend to downplay what it is that we have to offer. Sometimes we may struggle with issues around self-worth or feeling like, we are an imposter in the work, that who are we to, be here in a position of authority. And the truth is that you walk with very specific experiences in your life that have given you great learnings about your work and of your life. So it's really about tapping into your zone of genius. So for those of you who are working in community arts and the community arts sector, and you're specifically addressing issues around identity, it's really important for you to ground into your own sense of identity, right? And finding the value in the path that you've walked, knowing that the struggles that you have gone through have helped you to learn valuable lessons that you can then deliver out into the world through your arts-based work, through the work that you do in community. So one of the things that came to the surface was value in yourself and the work that you are here to create, and also understanding what is the impact, right? So in understanding your value, you must then understand or come to an understanding of what is the greatest impact that you can make in community, and that has to do with the gift that you have to offer and understanding who you're best served, right? So it's really looking at who is going to most benefit from the work that you are here to offer. So in combination with both of those things, it's also really important as an artist, as an entrepreneur, as an artist educator, especially as an independent artist educator, you need to be really clear about how you present yourself and your message. So it needs to be really clean and clear. What is your message? What is the value that you are offering to people? What is the unique thing that you are bringing to the table? What is the impact? And also being able to present it in a really nice, clean way, right? So you should have a website, you should have something that you can drive people to look at, even if it's just the simple 1 or 2 page website. The color scheme should match, the messaging should be clear, and the writing should reflect your core message. Hi Paula, how are you? I see you. Thank you for joining us. Alignment, find alignment within yourself, find alignment within the organizations that you're working with. Be clear about what it is that you're offering. Be clear about your value. Own your value. Deepen into the knowing that what you have to offer is important. And then be able to present it in a really clean and concise and clear way. What is your message? What are you offering? And then this next part is something that I think a lot of artists, and even myself, we struggle with, is consistency and follow through. So some of you may just be starting out, right? And overwhelm is a real thing. And overwhelm happens when we start thinking about too many things and feeling like it's insurmountable. There's so many things that need to be done, so many things that you need to accomplish. And so that causes us to go into a freeze response. And a lot of us also, and I'll speak to this a little bit later on, a lot of us within the community arts sector walk with trauma, right? And the freeze response is an aspect of trauma where we feel overwhelmed, where we feel under threat, where we feel like we are not safe. And so we have to find ways of moving past those barriers and showing up for ourselves. So self-love is not just about getting manicures and pedicures, guys. It's about following through with the things that you've promised yourself, showing up with respect for yourself, holding integrity to the things that you have said, and to your dreams, giving yourself a chance, giving your dreams a chance. And that can mean just taking little steps every day, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Consistency is everything, right? And it builds momentum. It helps you get to the place where you need to go. So try not to get overwhelmed. Break down what you have to do in bite-sized chunks, and create a system of accountability for yourself. And that may mean you recruit a friend, that may mean you invest in a coach, that may mean that you just create checklists and a system for you to have clear goals. So that's the other thing. Make sure that you have really clear goals about what it is that you want to achieve and the small steps that you need to get there, and then a way to plan it out. Put it on your calendar, or have a buddy system where you have an accountability buddies, and hold yourself accountable and take small steps. The other thing is, yes. So we spoke a little bit earlier about trauma, and a lot of community artists, especially in the work of addressing social issues and social justice, it is likely that you yourself have experienced trauma, we're talking about systemic violence, right? And we're talking about addressing larger social issues that stem from systemic violence and systemic inequality. And what that means is that most likely you yourself have experienced some of these things. You yourself have experienced the trauma that comes along with living in the system that we live in. And so it's really important at the same time that we ground in a sense of identity, so we're clear about, you know, what are the different intersections of who we are and what are the strengths that come along with that, what are the narratives that need to be spoken, what are some of the things that need to be brought to light that sometimes are not brought to the center. So it's important to prioritize the voices from the margins and your own stories if you are from a marginalized community. And also, at the same time, there's a real important distinction we need to make between empowering our voices and seeding in our trauma. And what I mean by that is when we become too identified with our traumas, it holds us back from actually reaching the potential that we can reach. So if you're constantly reliving and retelling the story of your trauma over and over and over again, and that becomes embedded into your sense of identity, inevitably you will hit a wall where you will not be able to progress past a certain point. So if you do want stability, if you do want to experience an up-leveling of your well-being and the work that you're creating in the world, at some point we need to transcend the identity of being a traumatized person. And that may mean that you go to therapy, that may mean that you find other sources of support for yourself to be able to do that deeper work. And that work is important. It's not like you can't, that's also not something you can just skip over, right? Like if we have embedded trauma in our bodies, and part of my background is in psychotherapy, I have a lot of training in the healing arts and specifically in bioenergetic therapy and psychotherapy. And in that work, it is understood that trauma is energy that is trapped in the body. So if we do not ever get to the point of transcending our traumas, or healing them, if we do not ever do the work of actively healing the things that have come to embed themselves in our bodies, it's really hard to transcend your trauma. So then we end up living in the same loop over and over and over again. So one thing that you can do to kind of think about this is think about the thoughts that take over your mind, right? Do the work of being mindful of the story you tell yourself about yourself, and do the work of becoming conscious of the thoughts that you hold in your mind. And when you catch yourself in a thought, think about, is this a thought that helps me to progress in my resilience, or is this a thought that is self-defeating, right? And choose empowering thoughts. And this may be a strange thought for some of you who may not be used to this idea of choosing your thoughts, but this is absolutely something that we have the ability to do. We've heard of, the conscious awakening of the humankind species that's going on right now. And really, honestly, what that is us waking up to our own minds, us waking up to the power that we have inside of ourselves to self-regulate, to be able to watch our own thoughts, and to be able to transcend beyond the conditioning that has come to seat in ourselves through the systemic violence and the inequalities that we have gone through, and to choose to behave and think differently about ourselves. So that is huge. That is huge. That is huge. So that part, there's the aspect of self-love, grounding in your consistency, following through, knowing what your goals are, setting those tangible goals, and grounding in your identity, understanding the intersections of who you are, and then doing the work of transcending your trauma and healing your trauma, and reaching for resilience, reaching for power, reaching for empowering thoughts about yourself and your work, and ultimately stay true to yourself. do not betray yourself, as one of Carolyn Mace is a great teacher of mine. And sometimes we go toward the disparaging thoughts and we betray ourselves. So I think it's really important for us to stay grounded, get to the bottom of who we are, connect to that soul place, and stay true to that place. So yeah, that is kind of what I wanted to share with you in terms of some of the things that came up during the conversations for the digital consults that I did. I'm curious to hear if there's any other questions that people have. Please do share those with me now if you have them. Otherwise, I can kind of shout out a couple of things. So if you are an artist educator in the work of doing empowering work, so you are interested in doing work that through the arts that empower community, empower yourself, and empower community, I mean as in empowerment is not something you can give to somebody, right? It is something that you help to open up a space for people to discover the empowerment that naturally is already there. Right? So if you are somebody who is an artist and you're an educator and you're in the work of addressing social issues in community, join my Facebook group. It's called Empowering Artist Educators. We will put a link to that in the video, and also shoutouts to Neighbourhood Arts Network. Thank you guys for doing the work that you're doing. It is so amazing. There's so many resources. If y'all go to the Neighbourhood Arts Network website, and I believe it's neighborhoodartsnetwork.org, you can go to the learning room. So there's something called the learning room on their website. So if you go to the menu and you click on the learning room and you go to the tab that says learning, you will see there is a article that I wrote under best practices in community arts education. And so if you want to dig into this work a little bit further, I really recommend you go and read through this article. It points to some of the core things that I think are really necessary for us to keep in mind when we are approaching community arts education. So it's a framework for pedagogy that I've created called the Purpose-Rooted Arts Education pedagogy, and it's a framework for understanding some of the best practices in arts education and community arts education specifically. And I think it's really important for us to also define what is community arts education versus just regular arts education. I find that there's different forms of how we engage in the arts. So there is kind of three main categories how I think about arts education. So there's learning about the arts, which is kind of learning about art history and learning about different facts and figures and things like that related to art. And then there is learning in the arts, which is basically just a transference of artistic skills, right? So if you're in a dance class and you're just only learning technique, or you're in a painting class and you're only learning painting technique. And then there's community arts education, which is, or learning through the arts as well, as it's also known, is way of utilizing the art to convey larger lessons around society about human experiences. So for example, I did a lot of work in spoken word and using spoken word as a way to address issues of identity. I currently work within the medium of Brazilian Zouk, and my partner and I, Adoro, we look at aspects of intimacy that you can encounter as a human through the work of working with this dance form, which is a partnered dance. So you can just teach technique as an artist, or you can reach deeper and do the work of addressing larger human issues, social issues through the arts. And so if you're interested in that work, the article that I mentioned that is available at the neighborhoodartsnetwork.org under best practices in community arts education inside of the learning room will go through some of the core pillars that are important for you in doing this work. So one of them, just to go through them really quickly, is holistic well-being. So creating safe space and doing the work of well-being as a core pillar, equity and inclusion, and that means addressing issues of social justice. So understanding how do you create an inclusive space? How do you address equity issues in the classroom? And doing that deeper work of addressing social issues, authenticity and identity, and I put that in the category of empowerment. So how are you able to help your students to reach a place of greater authenticity within themselves and a greater empowerment within their sense of identity as a human, as a youth, as an adult, as a person who is seeking connection? What is the aspect of authenticity that your students are striving for, and how can you help them to deepen into that space? And of course, creativity and technique. And just because we're looking at social issues doesn't mean that you ignore the aspect of technique. As an artist, passing on the skills of technique are so important. And it's also really important to distinguish between the work of technique and the work of the larger issues that you're working with, right? So sometimes we can confuse students with not being clear about what is technique and what is some of the larger things that we're working with. So it's really important for you to be clear to your students about what it is that you're working with, and to have greater depth. Also, I really encourage you to just move past, if you're an artist, I really encourage you to move past just addressing technique and connecting with the humans that are there in your classroom, and connecting with the larger, the deeper work that we are here to do. And if you're tuned in and if you're resonating with this message, it means that you probably are a healer to some extent. You use your art form to heal. You are interested in creating a better world, not to sound cliche, but to be an empowering presence for yourself and for the communities that you are a part of and that you work in. So let's do this work, guys. If you have any other questions, feel free to hit me up. If you have questions after the fact and you want to post them into this video, I can follow up with you and respond to some of those questions as well after we finish the live. If you're not able to catch this live, get in touch with the Neighborhood Arts Network. They're a huge resource. Shout outs to Inez and Eva and all of the folks there, and Angie. I know she's having her baby world right now, and all the folks at the Toronto Arts Foundation and the people who make this work possible. Thank you for this awesome invitation to share my knowledge with y'all and this amazing platform that you've created. And if you're an artist out there seeking resources and seeking help, reach out to them. And you can also reach out to me too. Once again, my name is Sun. I am the creator and director of Voice of Purpose. If you want to reach me, you can email me at sun, S-U-N, at voiceofpurpose.org. And you can also join my Facebook group, which is Empowering Artist Educators. And such a pleasure to be here with y'all. Hope you enjoyed your lunch, and I'll see you soon.